Hi everyone, welcome to a bumper edition of the Sun Bookshop Recommends with a special Love Your Bookshop Day guest of former employee and young adult author Kate O'Donnell. This week I'm going to recommend Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, but I'm also going to recommend The House in the Cerulean Sea, also by TJ Klune. But first I'll start with Under the Whispering Door because I just finished it this week and it was incredible. It's a story about death and grief and so quite heavy topics, but I was laughing out loud while I was reading it. It's just written in this beautiful, whimsical way that deals with those topics in such a caring hand. And so it follows the story of Wallace, who is a very uptight, completely unlikable lawyer who collapses and dies in his office and then wakes up at his funeral, which is completely underattended, and he's entirely put out by that. And then he meets a young woman named May, who is his reaper, and she takes him to see the ferryman, who has a house in the forest, which is a tea house. And it's sort of, that's kind of the setup of the story. And then you get Wallace's journey of processing his own grief. And so the story is essentially about how grieving is not just for the living, but for the dead as well, as they grieve the life that they once had. And the characters are just so magical. There's, you know, the ghost of a dog who's passed away, but he runs around and runs amok at the tea house. There's May the Reaper, as I mentioned. There's Hugo, who's the ferryman, and then there's Hugo's grandfather, who also lives at the tea house. And it's just this beautiful story of family and connection and moving on, and also discovering yourself and discovering love. So I loved it. It was such a beautiful approach to these topics, and I thought it was brilliant. So that's Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. And I'm just going to very briefly mention The House in the Cerulean Sea, because I read that the week before and I loved it as well. It's very whimsical. It's very heartwarming, about a bureaucrat who gets sent to an orphanage to do an assessment as to whether it is suitable to continue to operate. And the orphanage houses magical children, because the world in which the book is set is where anyone with magic powers or magical abilities has to be wrapped up in red tape, essentially. Again, beautiful, dealing with someone coming to terms with who they really are and how you approach the world once you figure out who that is. So that's Under the Cerulean Sea, The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Both really fabulous books. I loved both of them. And that's me.
Thanks, Kate. I've been reading books that feel very close to home, and also like really beautiful romance novels. So I read Henry Hamlet's Heart by Rhiannon Wild, who's a Queensland author. And Henry is heading to in his last year of school. He's not really sure what he wants to do. And then all of a sudden he finds himself with an unexpected crush on his best friend, Len. And there's just wonderful characters in this one. I think Anna's talked about this one before, so it's highly recommended by a bunch of people here. And I just love the Brisbane setting, and it reminded me of Nick Earle's YA books, which I love. So it felt very familiar, but also really new. Henry Hamlet's Heart. And then a very sort of like obvious next book to read was Anything But Fine by Tobias Madden, which is a Ballarat setting. And it's about Luca, who is a ballet dancer set to go pro when he finishes school. And this is what happens when he trips and falls and breaks his foot, and his future's changed forever. But it's also a really great love story. It just felt like all those teen feels. It felt very, very true. And I loved reading about the Ballarat setting. And also they take a little trip to Ocean Grove, which is my hometown. So that was really cool. And keeping in the neighbourhood, I read an adult novel called The Small Joys of Real Life by Ali Richards. And that was really beautiful. So that's about a woman who finds herself pregnant, but unfortunately the father of her baby has died recently, and it's about her pregnancy and about the way that she and her friends sort of work their way through their late 20s. It was really, really beautiful. Jamil.
Thank you, Kate. Those that all sound great. Now, I have finished reading the Jonathan Franzen Crossroads, very highly anticipated, blown away by it. This one follows a family at, as the title suggests, a crossroads in their lives. We've got Russ, the father, who is a pastor who is thinking about cheating on his wife of a very long time, Marion, and she is thinking about also ending her marriage and going back to find an old flame. We have the children, Becky, who is thinking about finding faith in her father's religion in a time of counterculture in the 1970s. And we have Clem, who is the brother who is thinking about joining the Vietnam War, but for reasons we may not expect. And we have Perry, who is addicted to drugs, who is trying to find his own way in his life at this very tumultuous time for the family. This book, it takes place over the course of about 2 or 3 days, but we really do get to see each individual family member's lifetime in this 2 to 3 days, the way Franzen takes us through many key moments of their past, predicts what will happen in their future. It's a 600-page epic, really, because we do see the thought processes of all these characters, all the voices are so different. Events in one character's story drastically affect another's, and we get to see those reactions. We get to see how everything is connected, but also how these family members are so very not connected to the point where it is frustrating, but we do love them. We do love them despite all their flaws, and we can't wait to see what happens to them next. This hooks you in straight away. I highly recommend, if you're wanting to get attached to characters and see them grow and change, rise and fall throughout a really intense period of time, Crossroads is the perfect book for that.
That's great. Thanks, Jamil. All right, I'm going to recommend a YA book as well. First, I want to say, Kate, I read and loved all 3 books that you recommended, so we're definitely in sync. But this YA book is a little further afield. It's not set in Melbourne or Australia, but it's so beautiful. So this is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sarnez. I hope I'm pronouncing that almost correctly. It's one of those books that really seeps into your soul. I fell completely in love with these characters and the world. I couldn't put it down, and I know it's one that I'll be thinking about for years to come. So absolutely beautiful. It's set in the US in the 1980s, and it's about 2 young boys, Aristotle and Dante, and their friendship. It's about race and growing up, discovering who you are, discovering sexuality, and it's just so beautifully written. And I feel like it has a very authentic voice as well. The moment I started reading the first chapter, I was directly in this character's mind. And the way things are sort of left unsaid, or there are things drifting along below the surface, is done so beautifully. I absolutely loved it. I actually find it hard to talk about because it's one of those books that really affected me quite deeply, but I hope I'm getting that across. I definitely recommend it. And a sequel is just about to come out, so it's a really good time to discover these characters, and I can't wait to read the next one.
Wow, so many books, so little time. They all sound fantastic. I have also read a really amazing book, which is Amor Towles' new book called The Lincoln Highway. And oh my God, I've read his other novels. He is such a fantastic writer. You are just in that book straight away, and you're on a fantastic ride to the end of it. I went for a walk with my friend who'd also read this book, and for an hour and a half, all we did was talk about it and what had happened and how it had happened and what did you think, and we were obsessed with it. It was great walk. And it is about a young man who has just got out of reform school. He's been released early because his father has died and he's gone to look after his younger brother. He has a dream to drive to California and start again, or maybe Texas. I can't remember. Anyway, he wants to start again. His road trip with his younger brother gets derailed by two friends who've escaped from the reform school, and he ends up on a road trip up the Lincoln Highway to New York, and then back to California. It's such a great, it's so sad and it's so happy and it's so many things and the characters are so vivid. And I just want to know what Emmett and Billy are doing right now. That's all I can say. So that's Amor Towles' book, The Lincoln Highway. And happy day after Love Your Bookshop Day, everyone. And your bookshop loves you too. Don't forget that. Thanks, everyone, for listening to our recommendations.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.